Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. We're jumping into our new live stream of the week. I hope everybody's had a really, really good week so far. I know I have. So today's topic is personal struggles when learning to code. So we're going to hear from some of our creators on their personal struggles when they learned how to code, and see how they kind of overcame them, and then what they struggled with, and different ways that anybody else can jump in and figure out how to kind of overcome these, because coding is really hard to learn right off the back. So we're gonna hear from them, and if you have any questions, welcome to throw them in the chat, and we'll definitely get to them during our live stream. Hey, team, how are you guys doing?
Hey,
Hello.
Olivia. Doing great. Hey,
Good.
Luis.
Everybody's
Hey,
week-
Ziad. Everybody's here.
Yeah, super great. How's everybody's week been?
Pretty good. Can't complain. How you guys doing?
It's been nice for me.
Any particular? Do you guys have any highlights of your week that you want to touch on before we jump into our topic?
No, nothing.
I made chocolate chip cookies last night. That has been my highlight of my week so far. So
Sorry, I
out on a sweet note, that's for sure. What did you say, Dweez? Anyway, okay, that's just jump right into it. So I'm just telling everybody that we're here to talk about personal struggles when learning to code today. So we'll just jump right into it. I know we had a ton of questions from our last live stream that we didn't get to answer. We're definitely going to move those into our next week's live stream. And then the week after that, we're going to jump into some new topics that our creators have kind of created for us. So we're really excited to get to those. So make sure you follow our account and drop any questions that you have in the chat, which is really great. So I'll jump right into it. So can you tell us, all the creators, and we'll just go through, can you tell us about the story of when you first started to learn code? Because I feel like this is kind of the starting instance of when coding struggles obviously started. So you have to start somewhere. So Zia, do you want to tell us about the first time that you kind of picked up and started to learn code?
Yeah, sure. For me, it was during I guess it was during high school, like initially, and what happened was so both of my parents were kind of like in like either in tech or like very close to it. And they had kind of been like just telling me about the importance of code early on. And at the time, I was like rebellious and I was like, oh, I don't want to learn to code because you guys know how to code. And, you're my parents. I can't do that. But eventually in high school, I took this one class that was like basically drag and drop code. It wasn't actually like typing how to code, but there was this I think it's called Snap or Scratch or something like that. But essentially it was like block code where instead of actually typing things out, they wanted to teach you the fundamentals. So it was like drag and drop and like you could make these cool little games and it was really fun. I remember like the first thing I built was just like this little game where like there were balls that were floating around the screen and you had to like click on all the green ones and and if you clicked on any other color you would like lose points or something like that. It was so like simple, but it was so cool to me at the time. And after like taking that class and realizing like, oh, this is like pretty cool, because I just kind of like built something that I had in my mind and I put it on a computer, which was super awesome. After that, I started to immediately learn HTML and CSS because I got really addicted to the fact that I could like build things visually. Like I could type stuff out and it would like pop up on the screen. And my first few websites were they were terrible. I'm not gonna lie, like they weren't great quality, but it was so exciting to just like be able to type stuff in a code editor and then see it change right in front of me, like in the website. So yeah, that's kind of my story initially.
Very cool. That's a really interesting way to learn how to code right off the bat. I didn't know that there was drag and drop code, so that's really cool. I see we have a ton of people that are joining our live stream today, which is fantastic. That's so exciting that we're kind of growing here. So make sure you follow our account, and if you have any questions to drop to our creators, we're definitely answering questions today. We're trying to stay on the topic of personal struggles when learning to code. So if you have any questions about that, you're absolutely welcome to drop them in the chat, and we'll definitely get to them today. So thanks for sharing that, Ziad. Very cool way to start. Dweez, I know you're having some issues with connection, but if you can hear me, I want to share your first story of the first time that you learned to code. He might be frozen, so we might have to jump back into his answer in a bit. we'll jump right to Dom then. That is A-okay. Dom, do you want to share with us your first time that you learned to code and how that kind of looked like?
Yeah, for sure. So my story about learning how to code, I can't say that it was exactly like the first time because it took me a while to like properly start to learn how to code. But it all started, I would say, like even in high school, we had some programming lessons there. To be honest, it was high school. I was like a wild kid and I didn't like learn almost anything there. And then I came to college, like computer science college, and I basically didn't know anything from high school. I didn't know what a for loop is, just because I didn't pay a lot of attention to my subjects in high school. And then on college, it all seemed really complex to me. Like I didn't know where to start, what to do. So I started with C, just letter C language, and it is a good language because in depth I learned how not only programming languages work, but how memory works and pointers and everything. So it was a cool language, and that's my first kind of like proper introduction to coding. So I wasn't creating like any special apps or anything, but I was writing some algorithms and some small pieces of code to do low level things, but nothing particularly cool, like I don't know, cool websites or anything that came much later. But yeah, this I would say that with C, that was my first kind of introduction to coding.
Very cool. That's a great way to start learning. I know that you started with. So that's very cool. Dweez, how are you doing with connection? Can you hear us?
I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. So I'll throw you this question because the other two guys just answered them. They're cool way to start this conversation is, can you tell us the story of the first time that you learned to code?
Yeah. The first time I learned to code, I was in university, and I was basically for my bachelor's thesis, I basically had to do data analysis, and I had no experience with programming before. Like, we did have some programming before. I did not do computer sciences or anything like that. I did engineering study, and in that, we did some programming. And I had no clue what I was doing. I just got thrown into the lion's den, and my supervisor was like, "You know how to code, right?" I'm like, "No, I don't. I don't have that skill." And, and yeah, they were just like, "Yeah, okay, you're going to have to learn." So I just ended up having to do data analysis in R. A lot of Googling happened, a lot of Stack Overflow. I had no clue what I was doing. And yeah, eventually I did figure it out basically in the 2 months that I was doing data analysis. Uh, I Stack Overflow was my go-to place. Every time I did not understand.
Ooh, we might have lost him there. We'll wait seconds here to see if he regains connection. It doesn't look like it. Shoot. We'll come back to Dweez and his story soon. I know he's traveling right now, so his connection is a little rough at the moment, but we'll make sure to include him in this conversation when he comes back. So I'll jump into our next question here. So when you first started coding, what was the initial struggle that you ran into? Like, was it just really confusing? Did you guys like couldn't grasp any theories, or was it just like overall, just if you want to share some things like that? So Ziad, why don't you start with this?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think initially what I struggled with was the fact that there was just like so much to learn and I didn't really know where to start initially. So like after taking that one class like in high school, which was super introductory, I kind of wanted to like teach myself since I knew that there was like YouTube and lots of sources online, and I was like really excited about what I was doing at school. But like initially, it was just super difficult to know like all right, I want to learn how to code, but what does that actually mean? Like, what language should I learn? What do I like? What do I want to learn exactly? And even like when I decided what I wanted to do, like, oh, I want to build websites. There's so many like different tools and technologies out there for building websites. So I think it was like confusing to know where to start. And at the same time, like once I did decide to like learn one particular like technology, like React, for example, there was like a part of me that was like, oh, like what if I'm just like wasting my time with this course or something? Like, is this really the right thing that I should be learning right now? And for me, that was annoying because it was already super like it's already pretty difficult to learn how to code. Like there's a lot of challenges that come with that in terms of like training your brain muscles to think a certain way and all that. And that coupled with the fact that like there's just like a lot of resources online made it a little bit hectic initially. But the cool thing is like with that problem, like if you surround yourself with the right people and like start networking with folks that are already ahead of you in tech, that really helps because like what I ended up doing is started like asking people who are a few years older than me or in college or something that were doing computer science, like asking them what they were using, like either at work or like what they think was like the most prominent piece of tech and stuff like that. And that really helped me like narrow down what I wanted to do based on like what I saw my friends doing, and also just like helped me like find good resources online and people had suggestions and stuff like that. So I think I would say that that was like the biggest struggle like at the very beginning.
Definitely. That's a great share. I love hearing that. That's very cool. We'll get into some ways that you kind of overcame those and some tips that you can give to everybody about that. But great share. Thank you so much. Dom, do you want to jump in and answer this? When you first started coding, what was the initial struggle that you kind of ran into?
For sure. So when I was first starting to code, my initial struggle was when I was learning to code. So as Ziad mentioned, it's just like so huge, so big. You don't know where to start, what to do, and I was going through those core programming concepts. But my biggest problem was to understand like what to do with all these things now. I'm like learning all those core concepts, but I still don't know how to create anything useful, anything that anyone could use. Like I just like wrote some pieces of code, some algorithms, and they did something, but that was like nothing useful. So that was my big struggle. Like how can I create something useful for the real world? And I also couldn't understand probably how developers cooperate and work together because I was like, how can they work on the same piece of code without breaking things? And yeah, how is that possible? So like those two things were mainly like, okay, I know how to code, but I still don't know how to do anything. So like those were, and I can say that like the lessons from that journey would be that everything is just like so big that it will take you time and you will be confused for days, weeks, months, and years. I'm still confused for many concepts I see, especially like new concepts, and that's a completely normal thing because it's just like so big. It's not a skill you can get in a few weeks and master it in a few weeks. You will need years. And you probably won't even master it after years. You will be just really good at it, and you will be able to use it and understand properly. But yeah, just like continue learning. It's too big, and don't be worried if you don't understand something because yeah, like it might happen that you won't understand something 5 years later, and that's perfectly fine because it's coding, and we must remind ourselves that coding is really hard.
It is definitely really hard. I still am grasping concepts every day and learning something new every day, and I'm not even fully in the space yet. Louise, I see you're shaking your head. Can you hear us? Do you want to answer another question? It looks like possibly lagging on our side. We'll see if Louise can kind of find better connection on his side, and if it doesn't work, it might just be Ziad and Dom today, which is a-okay. It looks like it will be. That's okay. Perfect. Well, let's jump into the next question here. Did you guys struggle on choosing what language that you were going to start coding with? So, did you even know about all the coding languages that were out there? Zia, do you want to start?
Yeah, that's a really good question as well. I think like initially I knew after like chatting that I wanted to like build websites and apps specifically. So like initially I knew that I needed to learn React and HTML and CSS. So that was like pretty straightforward. But where it did get confusing is when I started looking at like back end as well, because you need to learn that if you want to be like a full stack developer. And that's like where I really got presented with, like, should I learn Java? Should I learn JavaScript? Should I learn Python? All these languages, right? And that's like that was the difficult decision point for me. Just because like a lot of folks told me different things, but what I ended up realizing is that like when it comes to programming languages, it's one of those things that a lot of people will have like opinions on. There's no like specific right answer on which one you should learn for like at the time. It's more about like which one is going to teach you the most fundamental concepts. So like what I learned at the time was Java initially, and I kind of chose to learn Java not because like it would become the most useful programming language ever, but because a lot of folks told me that it would teach me a lot of like the fundamental concepts that I would take into other languages, which was true in the end, because like when I learned Java, like it taught me object oriented programming and like how to write like good code. And when I ended up needing to learn like JavaScript and Python for other use cases, it was just like so easy because I had already mastered like a pretty pretty object oriented and strictly typed language, which really helped. So I would say like initially it doesn't matter, like in hindsight, I guess, it doesn't matter what programming language you initially learn, because once you learn one of them, it's really easy to like transition to other languages, because at that point it becomes more about the concepts rather than like the syntax and stuff like that. But I remember I had no idea like what to choose, because I thought at the time that like the programming language that you choose is going to like define like your career or something like that, which obviously wasn't true at all in hindsight.
Definitely. Yeah, I feel like I don't even know what to say to that. I feel like that was just like such a thorough answer, and I don't think it really defines you, which one that you choose first. So great touch points. Dom, do you want to touch on if you struggled on choosing a language that you were going to start coding with first? I know you're big, obviously, JavaScript whiz.
Did I struggle? Did I struggle? Yes, I definitely struggled. I picked JavaScript a bit later and discovered JavaScript later, so it wasn't my first language. I actually started, as I said, like with C. Then I did some Java, and those were my primary languages. Mostly Java, yeah, later than for work. And to be honest, I just didn't like those languages that much. C was a bit. I didn't know particularly what to do with C because it's quite specialized, and often you don't need to use C because you have like other higher level languages to use it for the purpose. And Java, it just wasn't fun for me. Like many people still use Java. It's like second or third most widely used language. I think third after like JavaScript and Python. But I just like didn't like it and didn't like all the rules, all the restrictions, and I just didn't like it that much. And then later I discovered JavaScript, and because I don't know, React seemed like a cool framework for me to learn. I wanted to build user interfaces. I wanted to build something that is actually visible on the screen and that's beautiful. By the way, thanks for all the gifts, everyone. So yeah, I wanted to build real something that's visible on the screen, that's beautiful, and then I discovered JavaScript, and I was like, oh wow, this is really cool, and it's so, I don't know, you don't have a lot of restrictions in JavaScript like you have in Java, and I really like that you can like do anything with that language, and the JavaScript won't complain like Java just complains, and especially when you're a beginner and the language complains, then you just don't know what to do and how to solve it, and maybe it's a good thing to have some restrictions. But yeah, at that time I just liked JavaScript. So I would suggest to other people, like, maybe you can start like with JavaScript or with Python, even Java. They're good for starting, because with JavaScript you can build fast. With Java you will learn, and with Python you can build fast. With Java you will learn core concepts. It is really, like, maybe you will go even too deep. If your goal is to get a job as soon as possible, I don't think you should start with C. C is more like if you want to really get in depth and you're studying computer science, then learn C. And yeah, just keep experimenting. As Ziad said, like, the language you pick will not determine your career. So just pick one, try it out, and stick with it for some time. Just don't try it out for a week, but stick with it for a couple of weeks or months, and then maybe switch to something else. Don't try to learn 2 languages at once, because that's gonna be a bit too hard. But yeah, just experiment, because the field is really, really, really big, and maybe you just picked the wrong field to start. So you can always try something else and see something else. You don't need to think that you're not for coding, or that coding is too hard, or that you hate coding. Maybe I thought that I hate coding when I was working in a company which used Java, and I just like didn't fit the overall vibe of company and everything. But yeah, when I moved to a different company, which was more a fit for me, and they used JavaScript, I liked it. So yeah, just experiment.
Cool. Moral of the story, try everything, I feel like. That was a great answer. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for all the gifts for our creators. I forgot to say at the start, we always have I call it a creator gifting war between the two. Well, we usually have 3 creators on. Dweez just has poor connection today. So at the end, we always like to see who kind of comes out first. So I think it was Isaac that sent all those gifts, and Anze that is sending more gifts, which is so fantastic. So thank you guys so much for supporting the creators and their answers. It's super great. We're also here every Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. PST on Wednesdays. So feel free to continue to drop those questions, because I definitely see them, and we'll be getting to those probably about halfway through live, because we're almost out of these questions about our topic today, which is personal struggles when learning to code. So I'll go back to Ziad for this next question. So which coding language are you currently fluent in? And out of those coding languages, which one was the hardest to learn?
Currently fluent in? I'm pretty fluent with like all the major ones, I'd say. Like what I work with daily is like usually TypeScript, React, so that includes like HTML, CSS. And I work mostly with Python these days, like more on the back end side of things. And I think you said which one's the hardest to learn, or
Yeah, which one was the hardest to learn out of all of them that you are in?
yeah, I like I said earlier, like once you kind of learn one programming language, the others come very easily to you, because it's all like pretty similar concepts, I'd say. So like right now I'm working with Python, but I like never really like I never actually sat down and like purposefully like learned Python. Like I just kind of like started coding in it because I knew Java and JavaScript, and I was like given a task at work that had to do with Python. Yeah, it was pretty easy to kind of like get going. I would say like I've worked in Go before, and Go I would say is like a little bit more challenging, just because um like a lot of the fundamental concepts that I mentioned earlier that translate from language to language, sometimes like one programming language will just have some weird like edge cases or intricacies that don't really correlate with the other languages. And I would say like Go and Rust probably like are the 2 languages that are a little bit different in terms of more awkward syntax and just little quirks here and there that make a normal programming language like JavaScript have like a little bit more difficult to translate over, I guess. So I would say those 2 are a little bit tougher, but I was like the majority of programmers, as Dom kind of said, like will code like worldwide. It's like Java, JavaScript, Python, maybe maybe C++ and C# as well are up there, but like all of those programming languages are so similar that it's so easy to like jump around from the one to the other. It just kind of depends like what you're building and what the use case is. I would say, to be honest though, like, so I learned SQL at some point, and that was like a requirement for something that I was working on, and that was like pretty early on. SQL is more used for like databases and stuff, or like talking to databases, and I would say that one took me a little bit to learn because it's not really the same as like other programming languages. It's called technically like a query language, so it's not like you're not like building anything with SQL. You're more like interacting with your database. So that took me a little bit to learn because it was a little bit more awkward of a language to like get a grasp on what it was really doing. But it was not because of like the syntax. It was more because of like what do I actually use this for and how do I like integrate this into my existing code. But yeah, that's about it.
Definitely. So it sounds like some of these struggles that you had kind of align with what Dom said when he first started. Like it's hard to kind of figure out like, okay, what's the purpose for this? Like, where do I build my project off of it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, very cool, very cool. Dom, do you want to jump in and answer this question as well? So which languages are you currently fluent in, and out of those, which was the hardest one to learn? I think you kind of touched on this a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I would say that I'm fluent the most, definitely the most in JavaScript, of course, and that's probably the only language I can say that I'm fluent with because yeah, fluency means for me like something you don't need to be an expert in, but you really need to understand that language more in depth. And yeah, definitely JavaScript because I've been using it for so many years. It's my primary programming language. Other ones I'm a bit less fluent at, but I can still build things with are languages like Java and C Sharp, probably even Python. But yeah, those are the languages that I'm pretty comfortable to use. And the thing is that programming is more than just programming languages. So you need to learn concepts of front end, of back end, of computers, of networking, of problem solving. And then you realize that programming language is just a tool. And the more experience you get in any programming language and field of technology in general and everything connected to software engineering, the easier for you is to jump to some other field. So, for example, I've never tried Go, but I'm sure that if I try to learn Go now, that in a couple of months I will be able to build real things with Go. Maybe even in less time, and that would take me way more if Go was my first programming language.
Cool. That's a great answer. Very sweet. I hope everybody caught that and they're writing notes on these guys because these are great answers. We're going to jump to some questions that were in the chat a little bit earlier in our live stream. So the first question that popped up was, do you think that Rust has a future or chance of replacing COP or other languages? Does somebody want to jump in and answer that?
I can talk about it. So, like, at my previous company, they actually used Rust a lot, and I worked for a company called which was pretty big, and like had tens of thousands of customers using our products, and Rust was used to code like basically kind of like a version of the Java virtual machine, so almost like a compiler, you can think about it. And the thing is, like, Rust as a programming language definitely has like a higher learning curve than other languages. But the reason that it's still being used, and I think it still has like a pretty bright future, is just because of like the way that it handles performance issues as opposed to like Java and JavaScript. So like the reason that they were using it for to write a whole new compiler was because it really like handled memory management a lot better than all these other languages, which like made sense for that use case because we were running like these small workflows in the cloud essentially, and we needed like a pretty fast compiler to handle that. So yeah, like Rust was used there. So I would say like a lot of these programming languages, even if not a lot of people use them, or like some people might call them obsolete, like there was a reason that they were kind of invented in the first place, and they have different optimizations as opposed to other programming languages. So I don't think it's gonna like die. There's still a lot of people out there that are like Rust enthusiasts and will continue developing the language.
Rust enthusiasts, I like that a lot. Awesome. I hope that answered your question. We're going to answer another one that was in the chat here, and maybe I'll throw this one to Dom here. I want to get into tech, but I don't want to code. Let's comment on this. So is there other ways to get into tech that you don't have to code or learn a program?
Definitely. There are many jobs in tech that aren't directly involved into coding or software engineering. So you can be a project manager, you can be a designer, you can work in HR, you can be in marketing. So there are definitely jobs in tech that are highly paid and they don't involve coding because software company with just software engineers wouldn't live a lot because there are so many other things to do which software engineers just cannot do. So yeah, it's up to you to see which of those positions you would love to do, because if you don't love coding, then don't definitely don't start learning to code. But yeah, there are other positions, so yeah, explore them and pick something.
Yeah, I would definitely say it's really cool with tech because I've seen students come out of Practicums boot camp that work in all fields. So they work like the medicine field, or they'll work in like social marketing, or they'll work for like the government. So you can really with and without coding, but also just in tech in general. So you can definitely get into tech in kind of any landscapes because it's still a business at the end of the day. So whatever goes into a business model, you can definitely get into. Thanks for in that aspect. So that's a very good point, Dom. We're going to answer two more questions in the chat and then go back to our topic questions here. So the next question that I have is, what is more important, the technology or the customer's needs? So this one can probably be interpreted a couple of different ways. Does anybody want to jump in and answer this?
I think I could talk about it. So
Sure.
essentially, like, I think that when I hear that question, what I think of is usually like the struggle that happens within a company between like a product manager and like an engineering manager. Usually, like a product manager's entire role is to like talk to customers and understand their requirements and then communicate that back to the engineers and like help prioritize things. And then the engineering manager's job is to really like support the engineers, make sure that they like, receive all the mentorship that they need, and if necessary they'll also make like a lot of the technical decisions. In my experience, what usually happens is that like a lot of engineers will want to like work on something specific, like improving their testing maybe, or like something that is like really core to the team itself. So they'll want to like work on the technologies that the team is using, and things that will like help them go faster and help them maintain like better code. But the issue with that is that because the product manager is usually not like, they're not coding, obviously, they won't really like care about that stuff. They'll really care about more like, we need to build these features for our customers like ASAP. So there's this like constant tension that kind of happens between like product manager wants us to build features and we want to build like good infrastructure and like help us go faster. So yeah, like that, inevitably like the best case scenario is like having this kind of like balance between sometimes working on customer needs and sometimes going out and building better infrastructure for your own team. But that doesn't always happen, obviously. So I think like the key there is really like neither one is more important than the other. It's all about like trade-offs, and also like really good communication between the engineers and the engineering manager and the product manager to make sure that like everybody's what everybody wants to work on is being fulfilled. At the same time, like there's different times for each. So for example, like if you're in a startup and you're building a brand new product, you should be fully prioritizing like what the customer wants and like maintaining good code later because the company might not succeed and you won't have good code to maintain anyways like later on. But if you're like in a very big company and you're like pretty stagnant in terms of customer needs, then it should be the other way around where you're fully focused on maintaining customer code and reliability and things like that. It gets kind of hard when you're like in that middle ground where you're kind of going really fast, but at the same time, like you have so many customers and you should really be prioritizing like site reliability and stuff like that. So it's really all trade-offs and depending on how you communicate your ideas like with the rest of the team.
Definitely. I've seen both of you actually do some skip videos about this. Like if you want to work, if you're kind of battling with your project manager over like you want to focus on the technology or you want to focus on like the customer's needs. So that was a great actually encapsulation of that answer. And it's cool to see like these videos come into our live streams as well. So that's very cool. Those videos are also up on our page if you guys want to go check them out, everybody that's in our live stream today. Great answers, yeah, that was awesome. So we're going to answer one more question from the chat here. I might throw this one to Dom. So this question is that I'm interested in cybersecurity and information technology, but I don't know where to start. Do you have an answer for this one, possibly?
I'm interested. Well, information technology, that's quite a broad field because that's basically everything connected to tech. And what would I suggest to you? So, assuming that you actually want to get into coding, doing things like cybersecurity might be a bit hard to get into just by learning things online, and it might be a bit hard to get it for your first job. So I would maybe suggest more just taking the front end path and learning some core like JavaScript concepts, HTML, CSS, and over that get to tech, and then later switch fields within tech. Because to be honest, I don't know. Maybe there's a shorter way to just like get into cybersecurity. I don't know a lot about it, so I rather want to talk about it. But yeah, I would say that like front end path is probably the easiest and fastest to get into tech, and then when you are already there, you can move, or maybe even just get a QA job, quality assurance job. That should happen even faster, like way faster than front end. And again, you will be in a tech company then, and you will have opportunities to learn more and move to other fields. So yeah, maybe try doing it with QA.
Definitely. We have a great QA bootcamp practicum. I think it's a 4-month course. So if you're really wanting to get quick into tech, I would definitely recommend taking that course. Great answer, Dom. So we're going to jump back into our question on personal struggles when learning to code. And I just want to give a big shout out. We're tied with our creator gifting war right now. So I want to see who comes out on top. So if you really like an answer, make sure to shoot your creators some gifts there. So the next question is, at what stage did you learn each of these languages that we were talking about earlier? Like I know Dom said he learned JavaScript later, and Zia, you learned some of your other programs later. When did you decide to add another language to your kind of repertoire? Zia, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. It really came down to like what I was building. Like I kind of learned since I was pretty self-taught. I learned things like as I needed to, essentially. So like as I mentioned, that first intro like was in high school where I just like got like a glimpse into what I could build with tech, which was pretty cool. And then as soon as I knew I needed to like or I wanted to build websites, I started like asking around like what language should I build for this? Like what language should I learn for this? Sorry, and like finding out different resources online like YouTube, online courses, boot camps, stuff like that. Like, and then once I learned the basics of like HTML, CSS, React, those things, I knew that I wanted to build like a more complex like mobile app. So what I ended up looking up online is that hey, like in order to build something that like, was online and had a lot of functionality, you need to learn like some kind of back end like technology. So that's when I started learning Java in particular, and then eventually Python and Node.js and things like that. So like basically like as I saw a use case for something that I wanted to learn, I would kind of go and research what language was most was popularly used, and then going and learning that. Like I mentioned SQL earlier, like I learned that because at work, like I was given like a task that was related to databases and like interacting with them, and I had no idea what SQL really was. So I took like I think it was like a 4-hour YouTube course or something just to like learn SQL quickly and figure out like what I needed to get out of it. So yeah, that's the cool thing about programming as well, is that like it is like a pretty descending learning curve eventually. Like once you get past like the initial hike of training your brain to think a certain way, it becomes a lot easier to like just kind of shift around, and you become really good at learning new things, which I really appreciate about this industry. So, yeah, that's kind of how I decide to learn new things.
Definitely. Great answer. Dom, you want to jump in and answer this question too? Let me know if you need to repeat it about at what point did you learn this and why did you decide to learn them?
Yeah, for sure. So I started, as I said, like with C and Java. I basically learned them just because they were part of my curriculum in college. So that's how I got into them, and just didn't have a lot of experience with other stuff. I didn't know if I actually want to do coding or anything, but I got a coding job, and they were using mostly Java, bit of JavaScript there, but it was like so made in such a bad way that yeah, I didn't like it that much. But later I actually realized, okay, I really don't like Java, and I found React, and I knew that I need to learn JavaScript properly before learning React. So yeah, I took a JavaScript course. I really loved it. I loved all the possibilities with it. So yeah, basically took JavaScript course just to get a proper JavaScript job and move to JavaScript. And yeah, I was really happy with it, with JavaScript, with learning all the frameworks, because all those JavaScript frameworks are almost like a new programming language. They're not completely new programming language because they're all core JavaScript, but still, when you like learn React or then you move to Vue, you still have like a lot of new things to learn, because yeah, there is maybe just one programming language on front end, which is JavaScript, one main one, but there are so many frameworks that it still feels like learning a new language, almost. And later I jumped to backend again, by using like C Sharp, even some, even jumped into DevOps, just because I became interested more in other parts of the stack when I became much better and much better. Yeah, when I became like really good in front end, then I just wanted to see more other parts of the stack. I already knew some parts, but I just like wanted to dive more into it to understand the whole stack and problematic of whole stack, because then it's easier to build even front end if you understand how backend works.
Definitely. Great answer. That's awesome. Hope that kind of gives everybody a pathway onto these creators' journeys and sees how they kind of navigated through it. So we're going to answer a couple more questions from the chat here, and then we're getting close to the end of the live stream. So if you guys have any other questions that you want us to answer on our next one, I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure next week our live stream topic is going to be answering all these backlog questions that we have from everybody. So the next question we have is, can I start from scratch, or do I have to finish the MERN and get back? Does somebody want to explain what MERN is, or MERN?
Can you last part of the question one more time?
Yeah. So can I start from scratch, or do I have to finish the MERN to get back?
To get back.
Again, up for debate how to kind of answer this question. So just jump right into it if you have an answer.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer it. Just to repeat it once again, because it's not that clear. So can I start from scratch, or do I have to finish the MERN, probably MERN stack,
yeah,
and get back? Well,
I'm
if you
get back in.
MERN stack, that's like a whole technology stack used for building, let's say, web applications, and that's like Mongo, which is like a database, like a NoSQL database, then Express, React, and Node, which is kind of like a pretty common technology stack used to build apps. And if you don't know anything about coding, I wouldn't recommend diving straight into MERN because that's everything. It's like a huge stack. It's like databases, backend, it's front end, and it's just like too much. And first, like React and Node are all based on JavaScript, and you should just learn JavaScript before learning React and Node. But before JavaScript, you should be familiar with HTML, CSS because they are used together. Express too. Express is just like a library for Node.js. So you of course need to know Node.js before using Express. And Mongo, that's a whole different, other part of the stack because it's a database. So I would definitely suggest like starting from scratch, like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then maybe go to React because it's still front end, and then touch on like Node and on Express and maybe Mongo, but definitely don't dive into MERN immediately because it's using all these things at its core, all these things I mentioned. So yeah, it's gonna be really confusing to you. I wouldn't do that. There are some people who dive straight into React. I just like don't recommend it because it's not gonna be that clear to you what's happening because it's not gonna be clear to you even if you start with HTML. So yeah, if you start 7 steps later, it's gonna be really confusing.
Definitely. That's a great answer. Hopefully that answered our participants' question there. Cool. So a couple more questions here before kind of to wrap up our live, and make sure that you guys give us a follow and support our creators during our live streams. I know they really appreciate it. We are here every Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. PST. So feel free to jump your questions into the chat, and we'll make sure to get to them next week. So I'll answer one more question from the chat, and then I'll jump back over. So the next question is, these are kind of double questions that we can answer together, is where should I learn coding? And do you feel that certifications are the way to go over a degree? I'll get you both to answer these because I feel like you both maybe have differing opinions on this. So Ziad, go jump right into it.
Yeah, so certifications over a degree basically. So like I have a computer science like degree and or I studied computer science in college, and I don't know, like I've met people with kind of like the certification route, and I think that like both people are able to get like the initial jobs, and perhaps even like the boot camp and certification folks can kind of like get the jobs quicker because they don't have to go through like the 4-year degree. But I will say that like the thing that I valued in college as well is that like you learn even though a lot of the things you learn like aren't directly like, or applicable in like what you do in your job. I feel like you learn a lot of fundamentals that help you like analyze technologies and like be a critical thinker. Essentially, like the way I see is like there's two types of like software engineers in general. There's the software engineer that like when they need to build something, they just go look at like the API of that technology and they learn how to use it, and which is great. Like it gets the job done. But I feel like the better software engineers out there that I've seen are like the folks that really like succeed in climbing the ladder and like going into like higher positions are the ones that are like really curious about technologies, and they don't only use them but they go and like see how they work like underneath the hood, and like they really look at the code, they figure out like why like why React is better than Vue, for example, or like they start analyzing these different technologies critically. And I feel like you can only do that when you have a fundamental knowledge of what's going on. And like I learned that fundamental knowledge in college, for example. So that's not to say that like the certifications and the boot camps aren't in, because you can still more than get a job with them. But I'm just saying, like, to be really one of the top engineers, you have to like go the extra step, because things like boot camps, what they really do well is that they get you a job. But like, you have to do the rest. Basically, you have to work hard at that job. You have to like, continuously learn, because CS is like such a changing like field pretty quickly. So you have to like keep learning. So that's kind of my opinion on things. I think if your goal is just to get like the job, and like you really just want to get into tech right now, then college is going to take a while. So the certifications and the boot camps are probably your best route. But just be prepared to like do more self learning after that.
Definitely. Honestly, that was a great answer. I love that encapsulation of weighing both options there. Dom, do you want to share your opinion on it? Like, with certifications over a degree, and where should they learn to code if they want to get into it?
Yeah, for sure. Maybe I'll touch on certifications over a degree, or the other way. I kind of agree with everything Ziad said. So both things have its pros and cons. With college, it's definitely gonna take a while until you get your first job, and it might be extremely expensive. So, but if you are in opportunity to study computer science or anything technology related, and if you really want to do it and you see yourself in technology fields for a long time, not just like to jump into it for a few years and go out, then I would recommend college, because at this stage it's a degree is valued, and you will learn much more stuff than you will actually use in your college, but you will develop problem solving skills, and you will get like in-depth level of technology, internet, and all that world. But on the other hand, if you just want to get a job, if you want to get a job quickly, then you should try boot camps. Boot camp certifications, because you'll just get a job quickly. It's going to be way less expensive. And as Ziad mentioned, you'll need to learn some things alone, because, college will teach you those things. Boot camps won't, because they're focused on getting a job as fast as possible, and many those things are not relevant to get a job. So they are efficient, and they're going to get you a job, they're going to get you a nice pay. But they won't go, of course, that much into depth as 4 years or 5 years college degree.
Honestly, great answer. Those are great. I see a question in the chat here is, how do I know what is the right boot camp for me or course for me? I would recommend just trying a bunch of things, like searching on YouTube first. And we do have a really great career quiz in our bio that you can kind of see like what course or what area that you should definitely go into. So I would recommend taking that. And I will just give a quick little update that we are having a 15% off sale for practicum boot camps for all of February, because we want to be your Valentine this February practicum. So that's really exciting. More question, and then we're off for today. So the last question is, how can you overcome some of these struggles with coding? And do you have any tips for your audience or resources that you can kind of tell them about to kind of learn coding a little bit faster and grasp these concepts? So Ziad, do you want to start?
Yeah, sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
So how do you overcome some of these struggles with coding? And do you have any tips for our audience or resources that you can provide to them on learning to code?
Yeah, like I said, the struggles initially are really around like what to learn, just because there's so much out there. I think that like once you know what to learn, you know the right resources, and like you have the right amount of work ethic, you will definitely like succeed at learning. So I would say like the number one thing that worked with me, as I mentioned earlier, is like really surrounding myself with the right people that like knew what they were talking about, because it's kind of very easy to get lost in the weeds of things when you're like trying to figure out what to learn initially. So like I'm sure anybody that is remotely interested in tech, like if you really think through like the people that there's going to be like one person, even if it's like someone you know personally, or just someone you could even reach out to online or something like that, that like will have some expertise, and will know what they're talking about, and can like help you know what to learn. So surrounding yourself with the right people, it really helped me. Like it helped me to get the right mentorship that I needed early on, to really like succeed in this field. So, um, I think that's pretty important because it's really hard to just like do it on your own and like figure out things from like just reading on your own and stuff like that. So find a mentor, find someone that's in tech already that can like guide you along the way.
Great answer. Dom, do you have any tips or resources on how to overcome struggles with coding or just where to learn?
Yeah, so everything that Ziad said, I 100% support that. I would also add that you just need to be aware that the field is like really big and just like massive, and that it's gonna take time and that it's gonna be hard. So yeah, surrounding yourself with like-minded people and just not giving up is definitely a great tip. Don't expect to, I don't know, get into coding in 5 weeks and get like six-figure salary immediately, because that's probably like almost 100% not gonna happen. But yeah, it's definitely worth it. So just like stick around and be completely okay with that. The fact that you don't understand many things, that's completely normal. And yeah, just keep. I would suggest that was I was doing for my whole career, and I still do. If I don't understand some technology or some tool or something, I still use it, because sometimes it can take you days or weeks or months to understand something, or something you're just like not. There are many concepts in programming that you're not able to understand at this current stage because they are super complex, dependent on other problems. Imagine if you want to learn complex equations in math, but you don't know how to count to 10. That doesn't make sense. And no matter how try to understand those complex math equations, you would never understand them because you need to do 10 things before that. So I would suggest that, like, if you don't understand it, try to understand it. If you see it's too complex, you can still use it without understanding it deeply. So yeah, I'm more like that type of engineer who, because later in your career with like way more experience, you will be able to understand some concepts, problems. So maybe then it does make sense to dive deeper into them. But at the beginning, just don't waste too much time on understanding too complex stuff, because you will get stuck and you will be unmotivated because you'll spend like days on trying to understand something, but you still won't understand it. So yeah, like have those small wins, like do things that you will understand, and they will boost your motivation, and just like go step by step.
Fantastic. Great answer. I want to thank everybody for joining our live today, and our creators for being here and sharing their knowledge and their expertise with us. Thank you so much, creators. We always appreciate your time. And we are here every Wednesday. So next week, again, I'm pretty sure we're going to be answering the rest of these live stream questions from this week and last week and the week before, because we have quite a few that I know everybody wants to join. So make sure you join next Wednesday, 9:30 a.m. PST. And we'll see you later. Creators, do you have any last words before we jump out of here?
Yeah, thanks for your attention. Thanks for all the gifts. For 10K likes, that's awesome to break that mark. And yeah, see you all in a week.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Bye.